My favorite clients are the ones that have the foresight, probably from prior mistakes and experience, to say, look, we're going to go after this project. This is the type of scope it is. And then I can actually discuss project risks with them right from the get-go. And that will help form their submittals to the owner or the consultant. We can actually say, look, these are exclusions, these are inclusions. We're concerned about X, Y, and Z on this project. You need to give us, issue an RFI, for example, if that needs to happen. That's very early on. Those are tend to be very sophisticated clients and long-term clients that understand the value that a lawyer can bring at that early stage. Oftentimes you get contractors, still I consider in the early stages, to say, Tim, here's a contract, can you review it? These contracts are becoming so one-sided that it's almost embarrassing. I'm almost embarrassed for our industry where it's trending, because I see these, contracts, the standard form contracts that were intended to be fair and equitable and objective, drafted by all these different industry participants, consultants, owners, GCs, subs in mind. And then you have someone on the other side, usually from the top down, drafting supplementary conditions that are just so severely one-sided that it creates an immediate power imbalance from day one of the project.
Is that a BC thing, or is that an all-Canada thing?
I don't know.
America thing?
I only know BC. I don't deal with any other province. I refer people out. If I have an Ontario client or Alberta clients, I just don't deal with it because they have a different lien legislation, acts. You have to know your limits as you do, right? You're not going to take on jobs you don't know. But yeah, I find these contracts are getting tougher and tougher to operate under, especially for sophisticated trade contractors. They're put into extreme positions and they don't even know it, which is really, really scary.
But you still have idiots that sign these things without even crossing anything out. And
people don't read it.
For years I've been crossing things out. Now the big jobs I send to Tim, and it comes back heavily redacted, like some sort of Joe Biden document. But
Hunter
Biden document or whatever, or some sort of Fauci document. But
heavily redacted.
They come back, and I just like, Tim, I need to get this job. I mean, I actually want to get it, so we can't cross everything out. But a lot of these
the F-bombs are going to get us canceled there.
we don't have to cut those out.
No, the Fauci is the F-bomb.
Fauci.
Yeah.
Fauci's in every podcast. Come on.
I'm kidding. We're just joking.
No, it's all over the place.
I mean,
don't cut that. Don't cut the Fauci stuff.
Some of the worst ones are personal guarantees.
Right.
Believe it or not,
owners
or big GC or developers, they will issue, a CCDC 17, which is a trade contract between owner and trade, and they will stick in there supplementary conditions that require personal guarantees from the owner. And I immediately cross that out, pay if paid or pay when paid clauses. We will only pay you if and when the owner pays us or the lender pays us, and that's a precondition to your entitlement to payment. I mean, these are insane clauses, and anyone listening, you should never sign anything like that, because you will lose not only your company, you will lose your home, you will lose your cars, you will lose your wife's home if she's on title. So be really careful. I've had some really tough conversations lately with contractors that it was too far gone. I couldn't even help them.
And I've seen them on contracts for like $9,000.
That's crazy, because it's boilerplate and they just carry them on.
Boilerplate, and there's scope specific work. They rope you into everything related to your trade, and they do that to everybody because some idiots will sign it.
You know what's going to be really crazy is, because we're trying to unpack all sides of things, it will be really interesting to have a general contractor come and discuss this kind of thing.
Hey, I had a discussion
or have a sub and a GC and a sub together.
Years ago, Willie and I, our dad, sat down with us at the head office before they were joined up with Bird, and we were $75,000 short on a bid because there was an area we didn't include. The area didn't have structural drawings, so there's no way you could bid it. It wasn't included on our quote. However, there was a tiny little clause that said work package 13 and, all fireproofing and work package 13. Well, we argued, how could we quote that? There was no drawings for it. And then this guy says, well, you just got to cross that out. Basically, every big contract that we get, the people that know what they're doing, these things come back redacted like crazy.
Yeah.
And then we have to mutually agree on the terms. And when only half of the people are doing that, sometimes it's unfortunate, but they'll just take your contract and throw it in the garbage, and they'll go with the bidder that was $5,000 more because he signed the contract.
Interesting.
So people need to cross out these shit clauses.
This is gonna be funny because it's some of the times that we mention names, it's like in a good light, and then sometimes it's not. This is gonna be like the All In podcast when there's like, and we talked to beep, and then we went to beep, and beep. We'll just give this to Tim afterwards. I'm like, Tim, can you just tell us when, like whenever we need to, because
that wasn't a dig at.
It wasn't a dig. It wasn't a dig.
Double
I know.
tap on the
I know.
table.
Yeah, it wasn't a dig. Yeah.
Yeah. So with
Tim, you tell us when we're walking into trouble here.
with those companies that initially sign stuff that they know that they're putting themselves at risk like that, there's got to be times in the project where a certain percentage of sub-trades have gotten themselves into trouble, and that can really like derail the project too, right?
Absolutely. Everybody. So I represent a lot of formwork contractors, and they're naturally, I had to recently pick apart a critical path schedule that had their work layered for each level that they were building from P4 up to L12. There were scopes of work that sandwiched their scope.
Right.
So my client was trying to work with the owner and said, look, you've delayed us for 6 months. Give us $500,000 to make up for it. It was very reasonable in our view. We based it on actual numbers. And it was rejected outright. You delayed the project. We gave you a new schedule. Schedule was never accepted formally. So what we did was we actually picked apart the schedule and the each individual activity, and we drafted a very detailed letter to Owners Council laying out the issues with it to say, look, if your rebar guys are delayed by 2 days, our guys are delayed by 2 days. And our guys are therefore allowed to seek a delay claim and extra cost because it's an excusable, compensable delay. So you have to actually pay attention to the schedule, which I find is often missed. So if you see that the schedule has certain activities that are preconditions to the next activity commencing, you can start figuring out, okay, we can send a delay notice for each one of these. And that's exactly what we did. I told my client, I said, you're going to be a pain in the ass to the owner to the point where they don't want to hear from you anymore, and they're just going to pay you your $500,000. That's exactly what
I have a question for you. These delay costs, are they like labor downtime, or are
standby
they
rates,
material cost increases?
Yep, crane rates, standby costs.
You just sent a notice each time. Did they quantify it, or did they just give notice?
Absolutely. You have to quantify it. You have to give proper notice in writing pursuant to the contract clauses. So notice provisions have to be honored. You cannot later say, oh, there's a 5-day deadline to give notice from becoming aware of an issue. No. You as a contractor, you have to follow those notice provisions perfectly. If you don't, you risk losing out on those claims. So, you sometimes you have to play the game because the owner might be getting advice that's quite aggressive, and they look at the contract, but they don't look at the schedule, or they don't ask the right questions, and they don't realize that in fact every single day the contract completion time is being pushed back because other activities or other sub-trades are not performing as they should. So you have to pick apart those issues, and at times, unfortunately, it's not even the owner's fault. They're just getting bad advice, and they're being led down into a very litigious area, and it's really sad because the project ends up, being delayed.
So another question: when you get a schedule sent to you, how, like you said, the schedule wasn't accepted by them.
Well, I should clarify.
So did that mean they got a schedule sent and they just didn't reply, or they didn't agree? Or do you have to actually reject that schedule in order to be like, no, we didn't accept this?
It depends on the language of the contract. So there was an official original.
Sorry
IFC.
to bore you guys.
No.
But these are legit questions.
It is. That's good content.
So there was an original IFC schedule that was included by reference, into the contract. That was the official schedule. So there's also schedules that you update, an as constructed or as built schedule against the as planned. And you compare the two, and that's generally how you figure out what is in delay, whether float was eaten away throughout the project, and who's responsible for the delay and how it affects completion dates. In this case, you had the consultant issue updated schedules unilaterally without input from the other trades, and they simply deemed it as the official new schedule, which favored their completion timeline. But they didn't want to pay for the delay.
So it's good for us to say, no, we don't agree with that.
Absolutely. Put it in writing and say, we do not agree with the schedule.
But if you don't, you still have a contract based on the old schedule, correct?
It's risky because you always, it's never a sure thing in law. If you go into litigation or the courts, you can never guarantee an outcome. So it's so easy just to, the amount of millions of dollars wasted on just sitting down and writing a 5-second email that says in the subject line, meeting today on site with so-and-so from so-and-so company. We discussed X, Y, and Z, fired off to everybody, make a record of it. If those emails existed, you wouldn't believe how many disputes could be avoided. But contractors generally tend to not do that because they're busy, they're outside, it's cold, they're working out of their truck, they don't have access to their phone at that time or their laptop's down. They're dealing with a million other things on site. So it's really difficult, but you can do certain things in this construction world where you can really protect yourself.
I mean, I just think that is so helpful, right? Just to even have those simple steps outlined. A few moments of intention can save you a lot of headache.